The other thing I was thinking about that I think is a huge component of family engagement that people don't talk about a lot because it's hard to talk about is culture and race and differences among people. And I've always been, until the last 2 years, I've had a couple white children, but I've always been of a different race and a different background than the families I work with. And it was hard when I first started teaching. It was hard. I didn't know how to deal with things. I was scared to try to deal with the fact I was of a different background, or I, had some cultural differences between my kids and their families. And it's taken me a long time to get comfortable with the differences and comfortable talking to families about the differences. And they're really tough conversations to have, and they're really emotional conversations. And to me, they've made a drastic difference in some relationships. So I had a student this year whose mom was challenging at the start of the year. She was very accusatory and very defensive about things, and it seemed really did not trust us, and just seemed to be very concerned about whether or not I was going to be a good teacher and whether or not her child was going to be okay. And we sat down for our first parent-teacher conference, and I was nervous about saying it to her, and I didn't know how she was going to react. I didn't know if she'd be offended. I didn't know if she'd be comfortable talking about it. But I said, I can't possibly imagine what it would be like to be an African-American woman with an African-American son. But I imagine that if I was, and I was sending my African-American son to school with a white teacher, it would make me nervous. And she just kind of stared at me. She couldn't believe I said it. And I said, I'm not saying that's how you feel. I have no idea how you feel. But I know that race makes a difference sometimes in education. And it's a hard thing to talk about, but it does. And I want you to know that we see your child for who he is. I see how special he is, I see how intelligent he is, and I have very, very high expectations for him. And he will be honored in my classroom, and he will achieve in my classroom, and he will get everything that every child gets from me. I said, I won't be perfect and I'll make mistakes, but I want you to know that I expect really great things from him, and I see him for who he is. And she just melted. She just melted, and she just sat there silent, and she didn't know what to say or do. And then finally she said, oh, thank God you're his teacher. And then we were okay. And it had been a month of a really difficult relationship, and it was a quick conversation, lasted maybe 30 seconds, and it changed everything. And it changed everything for the course of the year.